Welcome to NCBA's Cattleman's Call podcast with host Lane Nordland.
Hey everyone, welcome back to the Cattleman's Call podcast. Lane Nordland here with you today. Our conversations are going to be brought to you by our friends at Ritchie Waterers, so check them out. We'll hear a little more about all they provide livestock producers out in the countryside here in just a little bit, but a tip of the hat to our friends at Ritchie for bringing you today's Cattleman's Call conversation. And today we are going to focus around the New World Screwworm. Now that's been a hot topic of conversation amongst the cattle industry lately, and there's been a lot of work done, especially by NCBA, its state affiliates, and of course USDA to prepare for this potential threat. And we are at the 2025 Cattle Industry Summer Business Meeting in San Diego, California. Joining us today is NCBA CEO Colin Woodall, and with the Texas and Southwestern Cattle Raisers Association, their first vice president, Stephen Diebel, joins us here today to talk about this very important issue that is concerning to producers out in the countryside. Because this is a pest that we've heard our grandparents talk about, or our parents, and just the devastating impact it had, not only on cattle, but on animals across the certain parts of the nation. And, you know, Colin, you're from Texas yourself, born and raised there too, but when we look at New World Screwworm, what is it? I think people hear this, especially up where we're at in the northern tier states where I call home. You know, it's not something that maybe is on our radar right now, but when you're on the front lines like Stephen is down there in Texas, he's a little more in tune with it. But what is the screwworm, and why is this such a serious threat to not only cattle, but truly equine, any animal out there that could be impacted by this pest?
Well, in its adult form, it is a fly about 3 times bigger than your average house fly, with kind of a blue-green body to it and orange eyes. And it is a problem because the larva stage is a parasite. And what happens is when the females lay the eggs hatch, and then the larvae, the maggots, then screw into the flesh of whatever host the eggs were laid on, and they really just eat the host from the inside out. It is a parasitic insect, and one that can just cause excruciating pain to the animal, and if left untreated, can kill that animal in about 7 days. And it's not just a cattle issue either. This is for any warm-blooded animal that could potentially become a host. So we're talking about deer, we're talking about hogs, we're talking about hawks, we're talking about people, dogs and cats. All of them could potentially be a spot for the New World Screwworm female to lay their eggs. They're looking for open areas, fresh wounds, fresh navels, a nick, a cut, an abrasion, nostrils, ears, anything they can get into to lay those eggs can become a site for infestation. Matter of fact, the Latin name, Cochleomya hominivorax, means man-eater. Mm-hmm. So everybody knows that these things are just nasty. And again, this is a significant animal health and animal welfare issue, and it's one that has everybody's attention. It's why we're spending so much time talking about it.
Well, I'm looking forward to this conversation and all the information and the action that's gone around with this. But Stephen, from your perspective, what tell us a little bit about your operation too. But what did you grow up hearing stories about the screwworm?
Well, it's interesting. So we're a 5th-generation cow-calf operator on the Texas Gulf Coast in Victoria and Goliad counties, but certainly there's been lots of talk and lots of memories from generations before on, you know, not only the devastation that it can cause, but also the manpower and the labor that was required to protect these herds. Back in the 60s and 70s and even the 50s, so certainly it's something that we as ranchers and landowners and land managers we don't have those labor pools anymore. So it's going to be an interesting several months. Hopefully we won't encounter this pest, but as the progression has been seen over the last few months, it's something that we need to be prepared for.
In the economic impact, just in Texas alone, that I couldn't imagine how many millions of dollars. I mean, tens of millions of dollars. Is there kind of a calculated figure on that?
Absolutely. The latest numbers from a wildlife perspective are to the state are probably $8 to $10 billion as you comprehensively look at the wildlife industry and its economic impact to the state, and then you couple in the fact that the livestock could add another 1 to 2 to 3 billion to that number. So we're talking 10 to 12 billion dollars annually to the state of Texas alone. So obviously, from an economic perspective, it's devastating, and it's something that's very concerning to producers.
So, Colin, how did we get to this point? Obviously, it's been eradicated here in the United States. How did it make its way north, I believe just 700 miles away from the U.S.-Mexico border? What was there a breakdown there and just trying to get flies out? And we can talk about those sterile flies too, but what happened there in Central America and Mexico that has led for that infestation to creep its way back north?
So for just a little bit of background, all the countries that came together to push this pest into South America spent decades working on that. And once that was achieved, the decision was made to find an opportunity or a location geographically where you could have the best chance of keeping them at bay. And when you look, of course, at here in the Western Hemisphere, that's going to be the Isthmus of Panama. Panama is that most narrow of land mass connecting the North and South American continents. And so the decision was made to establish a facility there. It was a conjunction between the Panamanian government and the U.S. government. It's called the COPEG facility. And the decision was made to place it there because we knew that you would need the fewest number of sterile flies to be able to keep that narrow band in check. And for years, it worked really well. But what we discovered was it looks like the facility and the genetics the facility were using to produce their sterile flies were not keeping up with the genetics we were seeing in the wild population of the flies. And so because of that, the wild ones just got by them because the ones that they were producing in the COPEG facility just did not have the stamina, basically. We've also been told they just didn't have the libido to get out there and do their job. And their job is to mate. That's the only reason we are producing these sterile flies is because Mother Nature gave us a leg up on this pest. And that leg up is that the female only mates once in her life cycle. So the sterile technology is effective, and it's the way we eradicated it the first time, because if you have these sterile males flying around, they mate with the female, fools the female into believing she has been bred, and then she won't ultimately lay any eggs. That is still the technology that has proven effective, and it's the technology that we will continue to use. It's just we have to make sure that the genetics of these sterile flies are keeping up with the wild populations, and that's what we're looking at right now, because that's how they got past COPEG.
Well, and it is surprising, though, that for so many decades, though, that we were able to keep those levels there, too, which is assuring, though, that you can get ahead of this issue again.
If there is good news about this issue, it is we know how to eradicate it. And there are products that can treat the larva and kill those maggots. The challenge is we just need enough of both of those.
Yep. So where are we at then? Obviously, we've seen some headlines. Secretary of Agriculture Brooke Rollins was recently in Texas at the Air Force Base. Stephen, were you on hand for that announcement? What did that detail?
I was, and it was great to have Secretary Rollins in South Texas, and she certainly appreciates, and I think she appreciates the opportunity to be there and have an impact. So the Moore Airfield Base in Mission, Texas, is going to be a distribution or a disbursement facility first and foremost as we work through this process. It's also anticipated that we will one day hopefully have a facility there as well for fly production. So as we work through this, as we begin to see or don't see, the progression coming up from southern Mexico, that's going to really answer the questions as to whether or not we'll begin to see a build out. But hopefully we understand the importance of a domestic facility inside the United States, and hopefully one day, if that is needed, we will certainly commence that process. So,
just to build off that a little bit, and Stephen nailed it, the Secretary of Agriculture knows that this is a threat. So we don't have a situation where we have to convince her, because she's already in on it, and that's why she's made the decision she had with Moore Airfield in particular. And she's doing a tremendous job leading the Department of Agriculture and helping us as the U.S. beef industry to address this. We know that producers like Stephen and cow-calf producers in South Texas in particular really are the tip of the spear. They are the ones that are going to be hit first. And so having the partnership between the Texas and Southwestern cattle raisers and NCBA and the Texas cattle feeders and NCBA has been key to working this, because as the Secretary hears from all of us, she realizes the concern. And we also, I think, need to be very clear with everybody who's listening. This is not a Texas issue. This is an issue for the entire U.S. cattle industry. You think about the herd numbers we have right now, the historically low herd numbers we have. We can't afford to have cattle die from New World screwworm. The economic impact to producers, the economic impact to our feeding and packing segment as well. All of that is going to be devastating if we can't protect ourselves and then ultimately eradicate it again.
Well, we're going to continue to talk about New World screwworm and the efforts to keep it south of the border. But hey, we're going to take a quick commercial break and hear from our friends at Ritchie.
Water. It's vital to every system in an animal's body, from digestion to nutrient transport to temperature regulation. And better hydration means better growth and better performance. That's why consistent access to clean, fresh water is non-negotiable. Long-lasting Ritchie waters deliver. Ritchie, because hydration is everything. Find yours at ritchiefount.com.
Well, as we come back here today, a big thank you to our friends at Ritchie for sponsoring today's Cattleman's Call podcast. We are joined today by Stephen Diebel there from the Texas and Southwestern Cattle Raisers Association, their first VP, and Colin Woodall, CEO of the National Cattlemen's Beef Association. We're talking about the New World screwworm. And, Colin, we are discussing the sterile fly production. And how many sterile flies have been being released across Mexico or Central America over the past few months? Obviously, this is an issue we've been discussing for several months, but what have these efforts been like, and what does that volume need to be? Like I said, or as you mentioned, we know how to solve this issue. So how are we looking there with sterile fly production?
So the Copeg facility right now is producing about 117 million sterile flies a week. They were designed for about 100 million, so you can tell that they're already pushing that production because they understand the severity of the issue and the need to get these flies out as quickly as possible. So there are 44 airplane flights a week that are traveling in a pattern across southern Mexico, where we have had outbreaks, and north of that to try to find that buffer. Those 44 flights are dispersing the 117 million flies. And the word that we are receiving is it definitely seems to be slowing them down. But as they continue north, and if they do get into the United States, of course, our focus is protecting that southern border. But if they do get in the United States, or if they get even further north there in Mexico, we could need anywhere from 400 to 500 sterile flies a week in order to eradicate it. And we only have this one facility in Panama that can produce them. Now, Secretary Rollins did invest about $21 million with the Mexican government to help them convert a fruit fly facility into a sterile New World screwworm fly production facility. But it's probably going to be about a year yet before that's up and running. When that is up and running, that's going to be anywhere from 70 to 100 million flies as well. So we're going to still need more. And back to Stephen's point, that's where this more airfield comes into play, because at some point in time, we're going to have to break ground pretty quickly on a domestic screwworm production facility, in addition to the dispersal facility that the Secretary announced a couple weeks ago.
And Stephen, on the ground there in Texas, what has the association been up to in terms of dialogue with producers,
Absolutely.
with outdoorsmen? What has that been like?
Well, I think that's a great point you bring up. It's something that we've really focused on the last 2 to 3 to 4 months. Treatment, prevention, education for producers. We'll probably unroll a series of educational events prior coming after this meeting here, but I think that's been the focus, and I think that's been the primary attention, that we need to be able to educate our producers, to help them understand, what this problem can be. How do we mitigate it? How do we control it? How do we, put safeguards and practices in place on our daily operations, and help those producers understand what's been forgotten over the last number of decades. So that's been the primary focus of TSCRA.
And Colin, on that biosecurity front, what information or resources does NCBA provide its members for not only the discussion around screwworm, but other biosecurity measures?
Well, this week here in San Diego, as part of the summer business meeting, we did roll out with a pocket-sized handout that gives more information about the New World screwworm, how to identify it, what to be on the lookout for, and who to call. So it is about education. As Stephen talked about, it's been a couple of generations since we've really had to worry about this. And so we just need to make sure that producers know what to look for. This truly is a producer education focused type approach to give them the information they need, so that way they can be prepared.
And when we look at things too across the board, NCBA has been very vocal and in terms of other diseases. Foreign animal diseases have been top and center. Reflecting back to just the false news several weeks ago of a case being reported in Missouri, and we saw that quick market reaction, and it took a few days for the futures market to react to that. But talking about other diseases as well, we know we can get back to the point to eradicate the New World screwworm, but we think of foot and mouth disease and the impact that has had in so many different nations across the world. How important is it to truly always put biosecurity and these foreign animal diseases still at the top of everyone's minds, even though New World screwworm is top of mind right now, Colin?
You have to keep it top of mind, because as we have seen time and time again, and the false report of New World screwworms in Missouri was a great example. We can be going along doing really well in this business, and it's just one bad news story or the reintroduction of one pest or one disease that basically just rips the rug right out from under us and can cause a collapse in the market and put producers out of business. And that's what's scary about it, because it doesn't take much anymore, especially in the world of social media where news can travel so fast. You can be harmed economically and not even know it yet as a cattle producer if you've been
Absolutely.
out working. Mm-hmm. So that's why we have to look at biosecurity across the board, and not only what we're doing on our own operations to protect us from any sort of introduced pest or disease, but making sure that the government is doing their role too. That's why this week, while we were here in San Diego, it was nice to see the announcement from Secretary Rollins, who was joined by the Secretary of Defense, the Secretary of Homeland Security, and the Attorney General in the rollout of their National Farm Security plan. And it's made very clear that farm security, food security is national security. And by coming out with this plan with all the departments working together, it actually provides more resources to us as producers to work with various federal agencies that maybe we haven't in the past, like the FBI, for example, to try to make sure that everybody understands that they have to protect us as producers.
I'd be I do just want to bring up too another difficult conversation happening in Texas too. I know you both are from there, Stephen. You still live there. Just thoughts and prayers to everyone in the Hill Country impacted by that flooding. I know you got friends and family that have been impacted. So I just
absolutely
want to just recognize
thoughts
that.
and prayers. It's just one of those once in a century events, that just happened in a situation that's just tremendously devastating. The time of day that happened, the impact that it had in such a short period of time. I think everybody is, hats off to first responders and families and prayers. But it's just a tragic situation. I'm not sure if a whole lot could have done differently, but we're just thinking about that situation and know that our thoughts and prayers are with them.
Yep. Hard to put words to it. So thoughts and prayers. That's truly all I can say right now as a girl dad. My heart just breaks for those families. So, but gentlemen, we're in the business where we support each other. Rural communities come together, and whether
Absolutely.
it's tragedy like this or working to make sure we can stay in business and keep our families in business and whatnot, we need to work together to rebuild and look towards the future here too. But busy day here in San Diego. Any last comments here on the New World Screwworm or anything else the association in Texas is up to?
Sure. Well, I think, our efforts moving forward are obviously protecting our producers, getting the right information in their hands in the event that we have to deal with this pest. I think it's just going to be important to monitor and have proper surveillance. We really appreciate all the efforts that Secretary Rollins and her team have given not only producers across the U.S. but Texas and South Texas producers. We really value and cherish that relationship. Hopefully, we can reciprocate those opportunities as well back to her. But we appreciate all the support. It's going to be in the event that we do have to deal with this, it's going to be a couple of years where treatment and prevention are going to be the priority until we can get a domestic fly facility production going on our own. So until then, it'll be a vigilant process for sure.
It's going to take a lot of coordination and collaboration among many groups to make this happen. And that's really going to showcase and highlight the state-national partnership.
Absolutely.
NCBA cannot do it on our own. We're not going to be successful in making that happen without our partnership with Texas and Southwestern Cattle Raisers Association and our other state affiliates that are out there. To be able to work together is going to give us the information we need, the power we need, the influence that we need, and ultimately help us be successful in eradicating it, because I do believe we will eradicate it. And from NCBA's perspective, and I think all of us in the cattle industry, until this pest is back in South America, we will not be sleeping well. This is not about just keeping it out of Texas. This is getting it out of Mexico, Guatemala, Nicaragua, Costa Rica, Panama. We want it back in South America, and to make sure that wherever the failures were that allowed it further north, that we are positioned in a way that will prevent this from happening again, because the consequences are just too extreme. And again, not just for us in the cattle business, but for every warm-blooded animal that's out there. This is an animal health and animal welfare issue, and no animal deserves to be eaten alive by a parasitic fly.
Colin, you bring up a really good point with regards to the partnerships. It's not only association partnerships, but it's agency partnerships. It's producers coming together. So I think if we've, advanced the ball in any way the last couple of months, it's seeing those partnerships come together to work for a common cause, for a common solutions, and I think that's a testament to our working relationships. So we appreciate that.
Well, again, for all of those resources that Colin mentioned, that new handbook and other biosecurity measures, check out the NCBA website, ncba.org, for more of that information, and, of course, information there for the Texas and Southwestern Cattle Raisers Association as well. And with that, friends, stay vigilant, and, of course, a lot of collaboration and work still ahead to get that screwworm pushed back and those flies back down to Central America. And but no doubt that work hopefully will pay off soon enough. So thank you, gentlemen, for joining us here today.
Thank you for having us.
With that, friends, thank you so much for joining us on the Cattleman's Call podcast. As we play out here today, we just want to thank our friends at Ritchie for joining us. I'll sign off. I'm Lane Nordlund, and here's a message from our friends at Ritchie Waters.
Water. It's vital to every system in an animal's body, from digestion to nutrient transport to temperature regulation. And better hydration means better growth and better performance. That's why consistent access to clean, fresh water is non-negotiable. Long-lasting Ritchie Waters deliver. Ritchie, because hydration is everything. Find yours at ritchiefount.com.